Good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you. Welcome back. Hope your week is going absolutely fantastic. Now, one more time, let me remind you that this Saturday, October the 26th, unless something else happens, Dr. Richard Carey and I were originally scheduled to have our YouTube debate on October the 12th. Well, unfortunately, the hurricanes were hitting and they hit Asheville, North Carolina. I was supposed to be there with my great friend Rick Welch, and to do a blog, and then I was going to actually do the debate from that venue. And well, okay, the hurricane hit, put that out of business, and then Derek Lambert, who was the host of the debate on Myth Vision, he lives in Florida. Well, here comes the next hurricane. And so he called me up and said, he said, Don, I am leaving town. So he said, let's see if we can get this rearranged. So October 26th, that's this upcoming Saturday. This is Wednesday's video. This is 20, yeah, okay. Figure it out. But anyway, it's this Saturday. I've always been terrible in remembering days, getting things in order like that. So anyway, the debate is this Saturday, October the 26th, 2024. It will be carried on Myth Vision on YouTube, mythvision.com. Be sure to watch it. The subject of this debate is absolutely critically important for Bible believers. Now look, if you're a futurist, you may be shocked. Number one, by some of the things that Dr. Carrier is going to say. And you may be going, how in the world could anybody ever believe that? But he does. And he's a, quote, world renowned, unquote, scholar. Doesn't make his position true. But secondly, I'm going to be arguing, obviously, from the full preterist perspective and viewpoint, which says all prophecy has been fulfilled. And yes, by all prophecy, I mean the coming of the Lord, the judgment, the resurrection. All of that has been fulfilled. Now that may come as a shock to your system. And let me even invite you to be like one individual, good friend of mine now, by the way. I had a debate down in Texas years ago with an amillennialist. And about 2 years after the debate, I was contacted by this guy, and he says, I want to introduce myself to you. He said, I heard about your debate, and a friend of mine called me up and said, hey, let's go to this debate. Let's hear this weirdo, Don Preston. He's going to be arguing that Jesus has already come. This is going to be a slaughter. The other guy, Church Christ minister, the other guy, he's going to absolutely wipe the floor with praise. How could anybody be so crazy as to believe that? He said on the very first night of the debate, I sat there, and after it was over, I was absolutely shaken to the core of my being. Number one, your opponent didn't answer a single argument that you made. Number two, you documented every single thing that you said with explicit exegetical demonstration. And he said, I knew right then and there my traditional view was in trouble. I went home and began studying. I'm now a full preterist, and I just wanted to let you know that your debate is what shaped my world and shook it. Now, that's happened a lot of times. He believed that what he was going to hear from me was so absurd, so ridiculous, that nobody could believe it, and yet now he does. Are you up to the challenge to listen, to watch very carefully? Do you have an open mind enough to tune in and listen to what I've got to say? Join us this Saturday. I will be putting an updated banner and announcement on my website, donkpreston.com, so that you can see all the details. There will be a link provided, etc., etc., etc. So I've got to hurry. Already, time is getting on. Now then, for the last 2 days, I've shared with you how Succot, the Feast of Ingathering, the Feast of Harvest, is related to the subject of the avenging of the blood of the martyrs. Revelation 6, Revelation chapter 7. In Revelation chapter 7, this great multitude of 144,000 plus an innumerable number, they're all dressed in white robes. By the way, on these great feast days, such as Sukkot, priests were dressed in white linen. So this tells us an interesting thing, by the way, which plays into Revelation chapter 20, because the martyrs there, they're enthroned and told to wait. And what are they waiting for? The avenging of the blood of the martyrs. Only they wait for the millennium. Revelation 6, they only have to rest or wait for a little while longer. So we have this correspondence here. But now, I was about to get sidetracked. Now in Revelation chapter 7, I want you to notice that John is being informed about this great multitude and the 144,000. For this reason, that is, the fact that they've washed their robes, made them white in the blood of the Lamb. For this reason, there before the throne of God, they serve him day and night in his temple, and the one who sits on the throne, now watch, shall spread his tabernacle over them. Now wait a minute, they're already holding the palm branches, which is indicative of Sukkot. And now, and they're standing there waiting, by the way, which is sort of kind of indicative of the fact that they are either already in the midst of celebrating or they're waiting to receive it. Oh, and let me go back. I'm sorry, I failed to mention something there. I started you down on the path and then I forgot it. Okay, the white robes indicate that they're priests, right? Revelation chapter 20, the martyrs there, they shall be kings and priests as they serve God and as they wait for their vindication. They wait during this period that we call the millennium. But in both passages, they're being depicted as priests unto God. They're not waiting to be priests, they are priests. Which really tells us the millennium had already begun. That's all I can say about that, okay? Now then, the fact is, he, Yahweh, shall spread his tabernacle over them. So they've got their palm branches in their hands, but they're waiting for the Feast of Tabernacles to be fulfilled. And watch this. They shall hunger no more. Now this is in the future. This is in the future from John. They shall no more hunger, neither thirst any more, neither shall the sun beat down on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb in the center of the throne shall be their shepherd, and shall guide them to springs of the water of life, and God shall wipe away every tear from their eyes. Okay, wait a minute. Point number one. God shall spread his tabernacle over them. Once again, this is Sukkot. This is the fulfillment of Sukkot. What do we find after the millennium? After the millennium of Revelation chapter 20, after the resurrection, which is the fulfillment of Sukkot, Revelation 20, 10 and following, John says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth, and I saw a new Jerusalem coming down from God out of heaven. Hadn't already come. When was it supposed to come? Obviously at the vindication of the martyrs, Revelation chapter 20, at the great white throne judgment. which is after the millennium. But wait, vindication of the martyrs was to be in the first century generation. It was to happen in a little while, Revelation chapter 6, verse 11. I saw a new heaven and a new earth coming down from God out of heaven, and a great voice said, catch the power of this, the tabernacle of God is with man. Wait a minute. What is Succot all about? Oh, it's building a temporary little lean-to, as we might call it, a sukkah, to symbolize that God dwelt with them during the wilderness wandering, to symbolize his dwelling with them. And in Revelation chapter 7, this great multitude is promised. God was going to dwell with them. He was going to build his tabernacle over them. That's Revelation 21, verses 1 and 2. But we're not done. They shall neither hunger nor thirst. Neither shall the sun beat down on them, nor any heat. Well, let's see. Revelation 21 tells us that in the New Jerusalem, they'll never hunger, they'll never thirst. There is no curse, there is no death. And there's no temple, because the Father and the Son are the temple. And there's no sun, there's no moon, for God is the light. And then they shall be led to living waters. Now, I've got to point this out. This harkens directly back to Isaiah 49, which predicted the time of the restoration not only of the 12 tribes of Israel, but also of the nations. Salvation of the tribes of Israel, salvation of the nations. And it would be in the time of the restoration of the earth, or more literally, restoration of the land. Listen, for all of my dispensational friends out there who believe that we're waiting for Israel to be restored to the land, or who believe that they were restored to the land in 1948, please pay attention to this. This restoration to the land, this restoration of Israel, would be in the acceptable time in the day of salvation. Isaiah 49, 6 to 8. Paul, who preached nothing but the hope of Israel, said in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, chapter 6 specifically, writing to the church of the living God at Corinth, he said, we have delivered to you the ministry of reconciliation. We beseech you, therefore, be reconciled unto God. What is Isaiah 49, 6 all about? The reconciliation between both houses of Israel, reconciliation between Israel and the nations. God has committed to us, Paul said, speaking of himself and the apostles, the ministry of reconciliation. Therefore, we urge you and we plead with you that you do not receive this ministry of grace in vain, as it is written, behold, now is the acceptable time. Behold, today is the day of salvation. Paul was quoting directly verbatim from Isaiah chapter 49, which predicted Israel's salvation at the acceptable time in the day of salvation. And by the way, in that very text, God said, I will lead them. Lead who? Oh, the restored 12 tribes and the nations. I will lead them to rivers of living waters. And in Revelation chapter 22, flowing out of the throne of God in the New Jerusalem was the river of life. Do you see the connections? Do you see how all of these dots line up perfectly, harmoniously, to speak to us of one united narrative? Now remember, the 144,000 were holding their palm branches to celebrate the Feast of Succot, when God would tabernacle among them, and God promised to cast his tabernacle over them as well as the nations. And these 144,000 and the other are martyrs. They are promised that their vindication, at Sukkot, was coming in a very little while. And John closes the book with saying, the Holy Spirit does, by saying 6 times these things must shortly come to pass. He doesn't say some of these things. These things. Well, what are the antecedent these things? Oh, new heaven, new earth, new Jerusalem, in which the tabernacle of God is with man, in which they are led to rivers of living water. Folks, this is the fulfillment of Sukkot. And it was coming quickly, soon, and shortly, and without delay, when John wrote Revelation. What a beautiful, harmonious, glorious picture of the fulfillment of Sukkot. Now, we'll be talking more, even more, about all of this as we continue. In the meantime, please go to my website, donkpresto.com, order a copy of this book, Resurrection Feast Fulfilled. Beautiful banner right up at the top. You get a companion book for one price. This book, again, I'm not aware of another book like it that goes so in depth on the meaning, the significance, and the fulfillment of Sukkot. We got more to say about the river of life and Sukkot. We'll do that later. But in the meantime, join me on Friday as I continue my review and response to Brian Hodge and his book, Problems with Preterism. And then, I'm sorry I couldn't be with Mike this last Friday night. I had gone out of town. I got hung up. I couldn't get back in time. Sorry about that. It just happened. Okay, so join Mike and me Friday evening, 6 o'clock Central Time, 7 o'clock Eastern, for Preterist Apologetics. In the meantime, thanks for joining me. Hope you have a fine week. I'll see you on Friday.